And to just know that you can be strong and still acknowledge that these are difficult times, that we're under stress, or that in this particular season, at this particular point in time, you're feeling a little overwhelmed, or you find it difficult to manage. Personally.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
Okay, Teresa, April is Stress Awareness Month. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Honestly,
I didn't.
It's stressing me out to hear about all of these different months and recognitions. I can't keep up with all of them, but it is Stress Awareness Month. And so we're going to talk about stress today. And if you're living and breathing, stress is going to be a part of our lives. It's going to exist. Sometimes far worse than others. At least that's been the case in my life. And sometimes I'm better at managing it than others. But that's what we're talking about today.
Unfortunately, you can be stressing and not even realize it too. So we have to keep that in mind as well. So you might be thinking, everything is going along swimmingly, but you could definitely be in a stressful situation.
That is so true. So part of it is, like I said earlier, just being aware that I was about to say, if you're an adult, stress is going to be part of our lives, but it's also something that teenagers, younger kids, they are dealing with. So the great question.
Especially, I was just going to say, you said about teenagers and younger kids, especially in this last year, most children, their way of life was just kind of upended because of COVID. And they had to shift from, going to school outside of the home to being at home and trying to navigate the whole on camera, on
virtual learning,
the virtual learning, just a whole different way of life when they went from being in a room with, let's say, 20 or so other children to being in their bedroom or wherever they study from in their house, being alone. And that has, we found and heard since, been very stressful on them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and I tell you, I certainly have younger family members and friends who are dealing with the virtual learning with their kids. And even if they're not doing virtual learning 100%, they're dealing with the stress of their kids going to school, 2 days out of the week, on again, off again, and trying to navigate that. So I tell you, you're right. It's just a stressful time for families. So in knowing that, our discussion, I guess, as always, focuses on what can we do about that. But Teresa, I also want to start with, when we talk about acknowledging it, because there's been a lot of talk lately about women saying we're strong and almost wearing that as a badge of honor, that we're strong, or particularly when we say we're strong African American women. And to just know that you can be strong and still acknowledge that these are difficult times, that we're under stress, or that in this particular season, at this particular point in time, you're feeling a little overwhelmed, or you finding it difficult to manage. Personally, we've had a change in our schedule. I've been trying to support family members as they move about in their careers, and as we offer support to others that can be stressful. Just making sure that we're aware of that that's not a weakness. We're just human,
Right. Yeah. And I think more than, I keep referring back to COVID, but truly we're navigating uncharted waters for ourselves, for ourselves. And I say that in relation to or in regard to my job, to working,
Mhm.
and being a manager. And I have to spend so much more time now talking to people
Yeah.
than I ever did, and just understanding. And believe it or not, my staff is mostly male.
Mhm.
There are
Mhm.
only a couple of women that report to me, and they are showing signs
Mhm.
of stress
Mhm.
and being at home, and trying to navigate this this new landscape that we
Yeah.
find ourselves
Yeah.
in with COVID. Being at home and not not coming into work. And of course, the type of people that I work with are technical, and they do, a lot of them prefer to work alone. But and so you would think that being in the home situation would be ideal, but honestly, it isn't for many of them. It's quite stressful.
Well,
Hmm.
and Teresa, part of it is, I think, we know that if you're at home and your finances have been impacted, you're going to be under. If you're concerned
Hmm.
about your mortgage or how you're going to pay your bills and just putting food on the table, all of us know that's stressful. But I think what's unexpected is, like you said, when people who prefer to work alone or when they're at home, how that too can be stressful. And I can relate because you work, and for so long I had such a busy schedule, and then when I retired, um that was stressful because when you're working, you look forward to a holiday or a vacation, and it's just like you're on fumes trying to make it to that time, and you're so looking forward to the time off. And then when I retired, there was this long, there was just days where I didn't have a meeting, I didn't have to respond, I didn't have to show up. And so that's jarring to have your schedule changed like that. So it is a nice problem to have. I've settled into it, and now made it what I want it to be, what I want it to look like. But in the beginning, any change to your routine, because your routine, the structure is sort of what gets you through the day, that allows you to have some control. And so when you change that, there is a sense of sort of not being in control, floundering a bit as you try
Hmm.
to navigate this new normal. So I get that. I
Hmm.
get that because I was reading recently, the New York Times Magazine had an article about the how the hotel industry is being impacted in New York. And we know New York has some of the best hotels in the country. We all as Americans
Hmm.
take pride in New York and all that they have to offer. And they did an interview with workers at like very high end hotels in New York, places where they would have weddings, and the weddings would be up to the thousands, $40,000-$30,000 for a wedding or a bar mitzvah or some event, and it was nothing for dinner to cost $400 or something. For these events, it was their price. The price they quoted was like $450 a person for an event. So of course that's high end. At least it is to me anyway. And but what the workers said that
Me too.
I know, right? What the workers said, they belonged to a union. So there was some security in that they kept their health benefits, and they were receiving some severance and unemployment. So they were making it. But I'm telling you, what the workers talked about was that what was most difficult for them was that they were at home. They were used to all of this, the party atmosphere, and just very, just the workers were the ones that made it happen, but they themselves took great pride in working at these high-end hotels. And Teresa, this blew my mind. The workers in various capacities, they were making over 200 and something $1,000 a year. They had to work up to that. But the people
Right.
who were in not just management, but people who worked these events, because the events charged so much and because there was a very high level of service to this clientele, their pay was like 200 and something $1,000 a year. They said it allowed them, of course, to buy homes they never imagined they'd be able to buy, to put their kids through school. But they were managing, it was difficult financially, but they were managing that. What was jarring to them was not walking through the doors and seeing their colleagues and engaging in the work that they took great pride in doing. So that was jarring for them. But also what one of the persons interviewed talked about was they always took security in knowing that since they had worked up in this hotel, they could pretty much go other places and get a job, because they would know that this person, they came from this hotel and that's the cream of the crop. So certainly we should offer them a job. But they said what's been so difficult now is that they're out of work essentially, but there are no prospects for them going back to.
Right.
And they're holding out hope that these hotels and event places will rebound, that people will come back, because it's like everything's shut. There's nowhere else for me to go. And so people are experiencing stress at all different levels through this pandemic. Now, yeah. So
yeah, and hopefully with people getting vaccinated, we can get back to some sense of normalcy. But even with that, not everyone we know is, of course, taking the vaccine, and we're not even 100% sure how much protection, we're getting from the vaccine, and if it's going to be an ongoing thing like the flu shot. There's just a lot of questions about that. But certainly I'm hopeful that getting a few people I read somewhere that 1 in 5 Americans have now been vaccinated.
Oh, is that right?
And of course it's which is promising. And then of course by May of this year, I think it's supposed to open up in all states for everyone to be able to get the vaccine. So I'm guessing at that time that number will go up, and I hope that'll allow us to be able to go ahead and start back getting, like I said, to some sense of normalcy,
Yeah.
But I think there will not be anytime soon that we can stop wearing the masks.
Right.
Because even with a vaccine, you can contract COVID.
Yeah. And the masks are becoming so much a part of our everyday life that this was sort of funny. I went out with my granddaughter yesterday, she's 2, and we got out of the car. And when we got out of the car, she was screaming, Grandma, your mask. Like she knew that I was going in this store with no mask on. And I just went back to the car and said, thank you, baby, for looking after, Grandma. And but I was thinking,
but that breaks
She thinks that's normal. And I was like, wow, because she realized grandma's supposed to have on a mask. And yes, let me just clear that up. My grandchildren call me Grandmama. I don't have one of those cool names. That's who I am. So yeah.
It is a blessing to be a grandmama.
Oh yeah.
And I like that name.
But isn't that something, Teresa?
What I was thinking,
she was frantic. I'm telling you, she was frantic that I didn't have that mask on.
It breaks my heart, actually, because like you said, it is her normal.
It
She's only
is.
2. This is all she knows.
That's right. That's
This
right.
is all she knows.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it is heartbreaking. But you know what? It's some countries, some places, the pollution is so bad that masks are a part of their everyday routine. And I'm
Listen.
afraid that is what's happening. That is what is happening to us, because I'm surprised when I think about it, when I read about it. I'm surprised, COVID, that is, when I say it,
Hmm.
I'm surprised this hasn't happened before now. I'm really surprised it hasn't
Really?
happened.
Really?
Absolutely. Just think about, yes, just think about all of how you just think about how our society and how we operate. We do everything within close proximity of one
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
We're social beings. We're
Yeah.
social beings. That's
Yeah.
what we are. And so yes, I'm very surprised. I think people who study epidemics, I think, and pandemics, I think they're probably so happy. They're so much enjoying this right now because this is what they've studied. This is what they know. And to them, they're probably so fascinated to how us as a society, we're responding and
Well,
reacting to things that they've been studying and have known to exist forever because of their said career
yeah.
choices or whatever.
Yeah.
But we digress. We should get back to stress and,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
talking
Teresa,
about
I
it
thought you would have
specifically.
taken us to the health piece of it by now and given us some tips for how to better handle what we're dealing with right now. For me, part of it is just, like I said earlier, acknowledging that we're all going through this. We may not all be in the same boat, but we are all trying to navigate through the stress, handles the stress that we're under. Maybe it's different for different people, but we're under stress. So acknowledging that, it doesn't mean we're weak, but it means that these are trying times that we are living, and trying to do our
Hmm.
best to be okay through it. So just knowing, yeah, it's not, these aren't normal times.
Right. They are. But if we want to talk a little bit about nutrition and stress together,
Hmm.
they kind of go, they do. When you think about being stressed, the first thing I think about is comfort food. I
Hmm.
want to go to my French fries. I want to go to some cake or cupcake or a ice cream, those comfort foods,
Yeah.
but that is the absolute wrong thing to do
Yeah.
when you're stressed, because your body already, when it's stressing, of course, I'm not a doctor
Hmm.
and I don't play one
Hmm.
on
Yeah.
TV. But when your body is undergoing stress, there's all sorts of reactions going on internally. And then when you add those fatty foods and those high calorie foods that make you feel good for that moment to that stress, your body reacts in a really, really negative way.
Yeah.
Like your insulin levels go up, and you see people with just an extra layer of fat around their middle,
Hmm.
that increases as a result of eating those. I mean, in normal times, if you eat those comfort foods, you gain weight, of course. But when you're stressing and you eat those comfort foods, they target certain areas that are bad for you, which is why it's good to eat well when you're stressing,
Yeah.
because certainly you don't, for a woman, your waist should be no more than 35, or if you're 35 inches, and if you're a man, no more than 40 is what they recommend. But certainly when you're stressed and you eat comfort foods, the weight goes directly to the middle, and it goes directly into your veins that can then impact your heart. So the thing that you want to do with stress is to continue eating your normal healthy diet, and you want to make sure you get plenty rest. You want to be sure to get plenty a lot of exercise, or normal, at least 30 minutes a day, most days. And because it used to be 3 days, 3 times a week, but now the recommendation is 30 minutes most days. And try to keep incorporate the exercise and making sure to eat whole food versus the high sugar and high fat foods that make us feel good.
And and Teresa, when we went into this pandemic, because I have, I want to say, I shouldn't say an addiction, but I struggle with the sugar. But because of that, I knew, okay, you're going to have to fight through this pandemic. You want to stay healthy. And so what I did, something that worked for me, I just had to make a decision during the week. I'm not allowing that. And I've been doing it now for, I guess, a couple of months. And it was hard at first, but I do allow myself something sweet on the, but because I found myself getting out of control. And so that was a small way that I could rein it in, particularly during this stressful time. But Teresa, something I wanted to ask you about, because, I was trying to do the 10,000 steps, but you just mentioned the 30 minutes, and I'm seeing more and more about how that may not be critical that we do the 10,000. I saw something that reduced it to 7,000. Have you heard about that?
No, and I wouldn't pay that any attention.
Okay.
What's wrong with doing
The 30
10,000 steps and 30 minutes? 30 minutes most days. Think about that. If you're physically able to exercise 30 minutes most days, then you absolutely should. That's my feeling, because some people might not physically be able to do that.
Right.
But it is just good for us. It's good for us. And if we can't take 30 minutes for ourselves, then we're really in bad shape, and
Teresa, remember I told you that I was walking, and my neighbor, she was out walking as well. She said her sister is a physical therapist, and now her sister told her that being sedentary, that's the new smoking, not moving. We have to do something to move. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important. To move our bodies. But I just wanted to say that with stress, I was talking about eating the whole food, continuing with the whole food diet versus giving into the temptation of, a bad diet and alcohol. That's another thing. It's on the rise. People are drinking.
Yeah.
People are drinking a lot more.
Yeah.
As a result of this COVID thing too. And
I believe it. I believe it. I went to the grocery store recently, and there was, liquor store near there, and I have never seen that many cars in the parking lot and people going in the business. And so I thought, wow, there is something to what I'm reading. I saw it firsthand because I go in this area a lot, and I have not seen that many people at that store. So, yeah.
Right. Some of it is attributed to the fact that bars and restaurants are closed.
That's true.
So people are having to go and get their own get their libations and make them themselves versus going into a bar to have them.
Right.
But it is definitely, the sale of alcohol has been, I heard something, it's higher than it's ever been in a long time. So
I believe it. Yeah.
So, I just want to say that your diet actually impacts your mental health. So if you don't want stress to deteriorate into something else like depression or heart disease or type 2 diabetes, then definitely continue with the whole food nutrition and exercise.
And
that's the point that I wanted to leave with.
Yeah, and stay hydrated. That's it for us today. We're talking about stress, is Stress Awareness Month. And as always, Teresa and I wish you well, and stay healthy, stay safe. Take good care.
Bye-bye.